On to our presentation. As you may know, one of our own got turned around in the woods of Mendocino, actually Sonoma, I think, a couple of years ago, and was rescued by helicopter, which served as a reality check for the rest of us. What do we do when lost in the woods? Tonight, Michael St. John joins us to talk about what is wilderness search and rescue. He is the unit leader of the Marin Search and Rescue. He joined Search and Rescue in 1979 and in 1989 was appointed unit leader. He has earned an impressive list of titles and awards during his career. Michael will take us through various case highlights and then offer some insight as to what we do when we're lost. Please welcome Michael St. John.
You go over here. Get out of the way of all this. So is it working? Test, it is. No? Yeah. Oh, it is? Okay. Okay. Is everybody?
You did that. Let me here. Don't escape.
See.
Yeah, there.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Excuse me for the interruption there. So it says Microsoft PowerPoint. That is it. Share.
Okay. Yes, we
Okay.
got thumbs up.
Okay. So thank you guys for coming. And this is probably, I'm learning probably more than you guys are going to learn tonight because I had no idea about this great association of mushroom foragers. As Mike talked about, we've actually had a number of missing mushroom hunters over the years, including Jackson State Forest. And Marin County, even though we're assigned to Marin as our primary response area, half of our missions occur outside of Marin County, and we end up all over the state. As far north as Del Norte County, and 3 weeks ago, I was in Los Angeles County. And so our range is pretty significant. So I'm going to just do a really brief overview about our program. And then I'm going to just share with you some case studies. And we're going to talk a little bit about survival if we are in that environment. And then I'm going to have a couple of our high school age members come up that have actually been part of the program for a long time. And they're going to talk a little bit about wilderness safety out there. So as far as our program here, oops, not going to work. So the search and rescue team and California is really interesting in that we have 58 counties and we have probably 70 search and rescue teams. All search and rescue teams are going to be connected with the sheriff's office. And so Sonoma County, Mendocino County, Humboldt County, all these agencies have their own search and rescue teams. However, because a lot of the rural counties in California are small and the average age of a search and rescue volunteer is in their 60s or 70s, the Bay Area counties or those closer to larger populations tend to help out the rural counties almost on a routine basis, almost weekly. We're probably going somewhere, one of the 9 Bay Area counties, to go help more rural areas. And so we're one of several units that do search and rescue, and we're the search and rescue team. Our team is 120 members. We recruit once a year. It's actually very competitive to join the team. A lot of people want to do it. It's 100% volunteer. I report to a lieutenant at the sheriff's office. The sheriff's office does backgrounds. We do interviews just to get started in search and rescue. And I would say this is across the board in California. You're going to attend some type of academy. And I would say search and rescue volunteers are among the hardest working volunteers in the community that are really unknown. It's like being a volunteer firefighter where expectations are this high, your budget's in the dirt, and you have to make up for it with tenacity and dedication and training. We're also a 501c3, so we take donations, and we actually do fairly well as far as collecting donations in the area. Who do we search for? Hikers, hunters, fishermen. In Marin, probably our biggest missing person case is a missing elderly dementia. It's when mom or dad, wandering. 50% of Alzheimer's patients wander. It's actually a huge problem, and they get into the craziest places. We've located 2 in culverts, a mile away, and so you really have to be very tenacious and quick on these searches. But we also do missing kids, hikers, mushroom foragers, and then some cases have criminal nexus, such as abductions or things like that, evidence searches. And so we end up doing quite a bit. Last week, we actually did a technical rope rescue for a dog at the Marin Headlands, and worked out really well, great recovery. So we also do a lot of rope rescue. In our county in Marin, we run 48 to 65 missions annually. Butte County's closer to 100, and they do a lot more trail rescues, but probably on an average, we're getting about a mission a week, and you can just kind of see some of our stats there. We also do some disaster response, and as I said, half of our missions are mutual aid. Across California, this is just kind of last year's numbers of where we ended up, and we went all the way to the Oregon border. We had a missing mushroom hunter in Del Norte County who went missing under really difficult circumstances, right on the edge of a freezing rain. And Jillian back there stood on top of a ridge as a radio repeater and pretty much froze to death, transmitting communications for the teams in the field. And it was a wall of brush. You couldn't see more than 10 feet in any direction. We also have a very highly developed search management team. If you call us, this is what we're going to get. Recent missions in Marin, we've actually been on average fielding closer to 50 people, and fortunately solving things really quick. How do we prepare for this? We are always training, and we rolled into this event from training wildland firefighters how to do search and rescue today, the 3 of us plus another half dozen members as well. And we have everything. We work with helicopters, drones. We do rope rescue, technical rescue operations, search management. We've got canine teams, the whole 9 yards. And we pride ourselves in being able to do very complex incidents. The picture down there is out on Etzel Ridge off the M1 in Mendocino County at 6,000 feet above the Mendenhall drainage for a missing hunter. And so we have to be able to get places, set up completely remote command posts for extended periods and go to work. And then we've got rescue trucks. We were the first team in California, maybe the United States, to have e-bikes. Now everybody's got them, and it's a great tool to search from. A lot of medical training. We have Starlink, and everything we need to communicate in remote locations. And we easily, our team actually was integral in managing the campfire human remains search, looking for missing 80 people post fire event. And so that search had 1,000 people a day. So we're not intimidated by large operations, and we really strive on, great planning and excellent all that. We also, everything's these days done on computers. So if you come to a search, we can log everybody in on a phone, and we can track you if there's cell coverage live by phone. If there's no coverage, we can still record all your GPS tracks. So as soon as you come back into Wi-Fi or LTE coverage, all of your searching you did that day with a GPS track will populate on the map. We're also a certified mountain rescue team. Across the United States, there's approximately 70 mountain rescue teams, and this is a super high level of certification. We get tested every March. We've got to drive someplace far away, usually Southern California, and they throw somebody off the side of a cliff, and then they test us if we can go rescue them or not. And it's a pass fail with a big scorekeeping. So this is us in the Marin Headlands. We do snow and ice. What you're seeing up in that photograph is pickets, because there's no trees or rocks on the coastline of Marin, and that's where we have all of our cliff rescues. So we're always dropping pickets into the mud and hoping for the best, because it's a marginal anchor, but we haven't lost anybody yet. That's us training in Yosemite, and this is a separate incident in the Mendenhall drainage for a hunter that was actually located after 17 days still alive. So just some images. We do evidence searches for major crimes. We do disaster operations. We actually support the initial phase of mapping for large fire incidents. Sometimes we did that just last week for the fire up in Napa. We support law enforcement and fire evacuations. On our mapping software platform, we can track where fires are going from your phone. And then probably the most interesting thing about our team is the only team in the United States that has high school age members like Emmy and Jillian there that are certified for mountain rescue operations and go all the time. So our challenges is every time we go someplace, we're working with dozens of agencies. So we've got to work well with everybody. Each mission poses unique risks. We have to be self-sufficient. Running protracted operations with volunteers is always a challenge. And then we are, always managing a high-level volunteer organization. And with volunteer organizations, how professional can you make it until it's untenable? It's like, it's too much, can't do it anymore. And we're always right at that edge, where people are ready to quit because they're demanding too much, but not just enough where they stay involved. So it's a challenge. Our team last year donated over 43,000 hours, saved the county a bunch of money. And, when somebody goes missing, we get a call really quickly. So that's a little bit about our program. And I'll just show you a couple case studies. I'll start off on one that's light, and then we'll go into something a little bit more challenging. Let me see here. So this is more of kind of, I would say, a bread and butter case. And this is a woman who is hiking by Novato up in the Indian Valley open space. And it kind of gives you some anatomy of a search. Yeah. So thank you very much.
Yeah. Yeah.
So a lot of searches, like Hallmark is the class of, nope, still not connected here. IVC PowerPoint. So it's showing you this.
Yeah. Go to that, yeah. Share. Go to full screen. Should be.
Yeah, we can see members on the right side.
Okay, what's happening is that.
Are we still offline? So I understand.
I think it's. Take it out. So this is.
So
Presenter view. Start.
sounds
Should be
good,
good.
man.
Yeah. Okay,
No, but
and
it's
then-
still going there. Yeah.
Click on the three dots. What we've got. Oh, there's not sharing online?
I didn't.
Yeah.
So I was just
Okay.
trying to sort this out.
Go ahead and share. Just run over. Whatever it is.
It's unfortunate. Yeah.
That's like 17 steps. But that's not one step. If you have an understanding.
If you have an understanding, please knock yourself out.
Yeah, right. Apparently we found it.
Okay, got it.
Not yet,
Okay.
not yet, not yet.
I don't.
What's your name?
Osman?
Swan, thank you.
Yeah, no problem. So issue is that screen is that went away. This good?
Okay, thank you. So Miss Esther left her house in San Rafael at about 3 o'clock in the afternoon. And, you know, a lot of searches are driven by flock cameras, cell phone forensics. Where did they, you know, pass a bridge and get hit a license plate reader? And so San Rafael takes this missing case, but actually, even though she's missing from San Rafael, she's not anywhere near San Rafael. And so sometimes that investigating agency misses a few steps, but ultimately, due to the flock camera, she doesn't return home. She's reported missing, and they locate her car at the campus of Indian Valley College, and they call the open space rangers, and then pretty quickly the open space rangers call us. When there's a SAR call out across California, what they do is they page out their volunteers by their phone, and they'll typically respond to the command post. If you're in Mendocino County and you get lost in Jackson State Forest, it's going to take Mendocino Search and Rescue 3 to 4 hours to get there, you know, from reflex time to being on scene, going to work. And at best, you're going to get 15 or 20 volunteers, and they're very good, and usually they'll find you, but sometimes they won't. And so in this lady's case, she's 80 years old, and even though she's on the old side for being out there hiking, which is fantastic, you know, a lot of us worry about, does she have dementia, but the family is very consistent that she's got no cognitive issues at all. It's very common for her to hike alone. She likes to get over 1,000 steps, which I think was probably meant to be 10,000 steps on her pedometer. And she likes scenic trails and novel areas. However, how many people leave their phone in their car when they head out just to get off the grid? So, and I don't recommend that if you're out there foraging, but that's what she does, and a lot of people do that. So we have no phone to track, and we know where her car's at. So what we do is we start a hasty search. And when we initiate a missing person search, and this is really key to your survival, is we're going to focus on the trails first and then the drainages. Drainages are significant linear features, and that's where the water is. So if you're going to survive more than 2 days, you need to find water, and that's where you're going to be. And that is where we're often going to focus our search. And we'll start off with the biggest drainages first, and then kind of migrate to smaller and smaller drainages. And so we initiate a hasty search of the trails, with the rangers had largely done, and we then continued to focus on the drainages. And so we start writing more and more drainage assignments, and you can see assignment AO actually goes way up a drainage here. And we're starting to highlight some of those other drainages. Our team wears lime green, as Jillian's got on, and we are using e-bikes, drones, helicopters, the whole 9 yards. And so we have deconfliction that we have to do between the different types of aircraft we have flying. Henry 1 from the Sonoma County Sheriff's up there. It's a very good rescue helicopter. And we also always have sightings where people will call stuff in. The biggest challenge of the sighting, you guys, is it valid or not? And probably over 3/4 of the sightings that we get are people with the best of intentions that are reporting bad information. So we always have to try to validate sightings. It's always a challenge. This right here is kind of the inside workings of our command post vehicle. At about 4:30, Team 107 locates our missing person, and she is in a creek drainage. And gravity matters. Gravity will funnel people, typically if they're mobile, to the lowest points. And the chances of finding somebody in a creek drainage is 7 times higher if they're injured than any other place on the search or trail, any of those big linear features. So now that we found her, we have to work on an extraction plan. There's pretty heavy canopy, so we decide to do a litter carryout. That's the finding team. They're super excited. There's always 20 or 30 teams deployed on an average search, and only one of them gets to find somebody. So when you're that finding team, it's a really rewarding experience. They immediately start a medical assessment, take her blood pressure, respirations. We communicate that all to the incoming paramedics, package her up in a sleeping bag. We actually call this a hypothermia pack, and she was pretty cold out there. And we can use heat packs and things like that. And we did about a 2-mile carryout back out to where the paramedics met her, or we actually had a UTV, and then brought her out to the paramedics. And so this is kind of a classic lost hiker search. So the next one I'm going to talk about, and I'm going to keep my fingers crossed we can do this effectively here, is the Inverness search. And some of you may have heard about it. Go down here. And slideshow, play from current slide. Oh. I'll take some magic again. I know.
You guys do way crazier things than this. And let's also minimize this. And we're just gonna use slideshow.
Okay. Thank you. So on February 16th, Carol and Ian were people that visit Inverness somewhat frequently, and they know the area. And I actually grew up in Inverness. And when this search came to me, I had a watch commander call me and said, "Hey, Mike, so there's this couple that's missing, and I don't really think they're lost, but we don't know what else to make of it. What do you think?" And I'm like, "Well, we should go ahead and initiate a search and just rule it out, because it just seems like these people were picked up by somebody and driven someplace else." And so we spin up our search and rescue team. And it's an interesting story the way it unfolds. The sheriff's office is notified late Sunday morning by a housekeeper that the couple is missing. Patrol investigations learn that Ian and Carol missed an important appointment on Sunday evening. Their cell phones, their car keys, everything they own appears to be in the cottage or in their car. There's no sign of foul play. And what actually happened is they were scheduled to check out on Saturday morning. And the housekeepers came late Saturday morning, all their stuff still there. They write them a nasty note saying, "Hey, man, you're supposed to be checked out of here." And they actually come back 24 hours later and all of their stuff's still there. There's no sign of foul play. Both enjoy hiking. Neither exhibit any signs of dementia. And then in Tomales Bay State Park, in my 40-year history up to that time, we'd never had a search in there. Nobody gets lost there. We certainly have incidents on Tomales Bay. And so, but the cottage is a short distance to trails and beaches. And one of the reasons nobody gets lost in the Point Reyes National Seashore very often, they do definitely get lost out there, is because you can't go off trail. It's just a wall of berry bushes, brush, vines, stinging nettle, and it's just a disaster to walk through. So this is their Airbnb, and I took these pictures as I walked up. The room is sealed, for investigative purposes. And I took pictures inside their room, and the bed's not really made and everything's in there. I can see their cell phone and their wallets. We went through their vehicle, all their hiking stuff's there. So what happened? So nevertheless, we initiate the search. And so this right here is the Sea Haven area of Inverness. This is Tomales Bay State Park. One of the fascinating things, and this is very common for search and rescue, is we have the Point Reyes National Seashore, Tomales Bay State Park, Marin County Fire Department, the local volunteer fire department, both our Sheriff's Patrol, UAV, and Investigations Division, and U.S. Coast Guard, because it's a waterway. And all these agencies need to be coordinated. So by 4 p.m., we've got 25 SAR members and volunteer firefighters in addition to that, Rangers that are all operating under a unified command. We set up our command post at the Inverness Volunteer Fire Department, and we're out there searching the trails, and you can just see how dense they are on each side. One of the few places that are opening, we're inserting our canine teams to go to work, and we keep searching, through the night. And one of the things that's really interesting is, again, we talk about the importance of searching the drainages and linear features. And so this is the GPS tracks of a type 1 mountain team, super strong people. And we realize after 1 hour, we have not we have not heard from them, and we are unable to contact them. They're not answering their phone, and they are not answering the radio. We've even switched to the knobs on either side of that channel to see if their radio moved over a couple clicks. And just as we would declare an incident within the incident, stop all searching and let's go figure out what's going on with them, they give me a phone call and said, hey, Mike, we're good. Turn off all that stuff. Keep searching. But if you could get somebody to do some voice calls from the Johnston Trail, we have been crawling on our hands and knees for the last 3 hours. And they actually went out of cell phone coverage down in the drainage and just came up enough to get a bar and make a phone call out. And so what does this do? It kind of informs us the difficult consequences of going off trail. Now, here's the deal. As foragers, has any of you ever encountered this accidentally where you've been crawling? How many people have crawled? Okay, there's some hands up. And that's the reality is sometimes we find ourselves in these situations. And what I also know from experience is this is when your cell phone gets peeled away from you. Suddenly you can't find it, and so, bolting that cell phone down can be something that's really important to do. So back at the command post, this is our unified command. And we actually have everybody but Coast Guard represented here, state parks, national parks, patrol, investigations. And now we're starting our planning. We've got the Inverness Fire Department, really good for local knowledge, the County Fire Battalion Chief. And so when we go into an extended operation, and this is the Incident Command System 101, it's an all-risk system that's used across country, this is now going into a 24-hour clock. And each of these meetings has a time, and this is how we develop our incident action plan for each day. And this is called going extended. So any search past 24 hours, we're going extended, and we're going to be ready to carry this search out for a period of time. And I'll tell you right now, a lot of this is still very new to rural sheriff's offices and overwhelming. But we've been doing this for probably 7-8 years, and we're bringing it to other folks. And so one of the things we do, and if I knew this was going to be in a presentation, I would have printed a lot better, but we look at all the scenarios. And so we gather all the information we have, and we know, because his family tells us, that Ian may have cancer, and he's very close to his wife. And so they may do a murder-suicide because they want to go out of this world together. And so that was communicated to us. Ian is an incredible drug maker. He works at Stanford University as a chemist, and nobody makes better LSD or ecstasy than he does. And so could he be kidnapped or abducted for his skills? Are they in the water? Tamala Bay, certainly a big hazard. Hold on, I need to communicate with my wife because I took the car keys. Yeah, man, I'm in big trouble right now, I'll tell you that. Backup key is in the closet in the white drawers. It's just laying out there. Copy that. Thank you. Okay. So now this is our objectives of what our goals are for the next operational period. You can see a lot of investigation things. Does he own a gun? Is there surveillance videos? This is our resource order. And this right here is we do what's called a finger Matson vote. And so the stakeholders, so no one person is driving the search. We we get briefed on the best information that is available, and then we count fingers on what people think the highest probabilities are. And those probabilities is 41 fingers for lost off trail, 28 for murder suicide, 0 for abduction, 18 that they had a stroke or a medical, and 2 that they're in the water. And so that's that first night. And this will change radically each day as new information comes forward. And so that's the summary we're running off. And so we search into the night. We think there's a high probability of survivability. There's a lot of trails and linear features to cover. And so this right here is a parabolic microphone and loudspeaker that increases your ability to hear by 5 times. And so if they're out there responding to voice calls, you know, we're much more likely to hear them with a parabolic mic. And this works beautifully until the wind comes up, and then forget about it. So this right here is all of our GPS tracks at 4 o'clock in the morning. And that's all the searching that we completed. And we've ordered a bunch of resources for the next day. So that night we have a separate group working on plans for the next day. They're also doing interview and investigations. And this is pretty typical, where we probably have 9 or 10 different counties that have come to help us this day from across the Bay Area and Northern California. And this would be very similar to any search in Sonoma, Mendocino, Humboldt. And it's very likely that you would have a large presence of Marin at these teams. We've graduated from plotter maps to TVs for everything. And this is a Sonoma County team getting briefed on their assignment. We also have our mounted posse out. We have our e-bikes out. They're still shiny and brand new at that time. We've got our UAVs out. We've got our water rescue resources out, and we're pulling out all the stops. So we end up searching for several days. We have clues. We actually have on Monday 2 canine teams that alert at Shell Beach 2, and we search on Tuesday. And we get 2 more dog teams that also alert in this area. And I'm sitting down with a family, and I'll be honest, I have some skepticism with canines, but when do you have 4 dogs kind of alerting in the same area? I don't want to be here all night, but we actually get a second search in the middle of this search in another part of our county for a guy that's been missing 24 hours. And we have a very difficult decision. But we pivot most of the resources from the Inverness search at about 3 o'clock in the afternoon on Tuesday to this new search in Blackstone Canyon. But we stay focused on this. I actually continue on this search with about 25 people, and we finish out the assignments for the day. And the water gets more traction based on the canine alerts. The only relevant clue we have is somebody maybe saw the couple walking down the street to Shell Beach. We feel that we've got starting to get pretty good coverage. You know, by this time, we've been searching since 3 p.m. Sunday, all day Monday, most of the day Tuesday, covered a lot of ground. And then I talked about the next search. And we end up locating this gentleman in Blackstone Canyon with a canine team. That was a very great dog team find at 2 in the morning. And what I didn't tell you is we had already been training Saturday. We had a search Saturday night. So our team all of our volunteers have been running nonstop from 8 o'clock Saturday morning until Wednesday at 2 in the morning. We're smoked. And we've also beat up most of the Bay Area teams as well. But she's in the water. The couple's probably in the water is our assessment. And so we do a side scan sonar, which is kind of a sonar system that is able to detect human remains in the bay. And we focus all on that on Wednesday, but I get a call at 8 o'clock on Wednesday night. They even found something that they thought was a good hit, but had to come back at high tide. And when they come back, they say, hey, nothing's there. Did not find anybody in the water. So I won't go. I have a whole slide deck on water searching, but either waters are subsurface because they drown and they're going to be there for a few days. Everybody floats. Even people with concrete tied around their arms and legs, everybody eventually floats unless they're in really deep water, and then the pressure will hold them down. But that's not the case here. The bay is like 20 or 30 feet deep max, and most places it's a lot less than that. And so we put together a unified command, and we stay focused on the search, but the search focuses on the water. And this is we use Coast Guard dispersion charts, which are great for the ocean. It does not work in the bay. We have body float statistical data on how long it takes a body to float. And so the water's going to be around 50 degrees. So our float time's 10 to 14 days. However, salt water is different. And I think the time's cut in less than half for salt water. People float a lot sooner in salt water. And so as we're kind of gathering information, the Air Patrol shoots me a call, and there hasn't been any storms this February or January really of consequence. And the Air Patrol calls me and says, "Hey, Mike, we've been flying the Bay for 3 days now, and we can see the bottom. Like we can see all the way to the bottom. Like we're looking at sharks and all kinds of other sea creatures, and I just don't think your bodies are in the water." And it kind of sends a chill up my spine. And I realized that we need to stay engaged in the search. We need to stay on land. And so and the jet skis are out most days. Nobody's finding anything in the water. And so this is Thursday and Friday. So on Friday, we make the decision to re-engage the land search. And I was shocked that our team had 45 people that were ready to come out and search again on Saturday. So John Pope's the search manager this day. And we deploy teams, and Wendy Delia here, one of our volunteers, writes the assignments. She's fresh to planning the search. And this is so important because sometimes somebody with a fresh idea and perspective is going to do things differently. And sometimes different can be really good. And we had this one drainage that everybody said was impenetrable, including mountain rescue teams, not ours, but other teams that were assigned to search it. And so she assigns a team to slowly make their way up the drainage. And they tell them it's going to be horrible. You're going to be miserable. And so this team, over an hour and a half, goes 150 yards. And it's a canine team with 2 people. And they're shouting back and forth, trying to do route finding. And they hear a voice call. "Hello? Help, we're Ian and Carol." And they find them alive after 7 days. This is the terrain. It's a swamp and super muddy. And this is Carol having her first taste of fresh water in 7 days. You can see, and this is the clothing it's on them is all provided by SAR volunteers. This is us packaging Ian. The interesting thing, based on this terrible terrain, is once we knew we had a rescue in there, we had no problem getting like 25 people in there in less than an hour to access them and get them all packaged up for the helicopter. Carrying them out would have taken, several fire crews, half a day to clear the path out. But they stamped out some stuff, and this is where Carol and Ian hung out. And you can see there's muddy water. And I'll kind of go through. Well, I'll stay here for a minute. What do you think impacts survivability? What? Water's number one. What else? What? Shelter, heat, and they had neither, but it's mild. It's a mild February. Temperatures at night were probably in the high 40s, low 50s, but they have each other, and they're cuddling, and they're not badly dressed. They're not well dressed, but they're totally soaked through and wet as well on their pants wherever they're contacting the ground. And do you think your passion to survive plays a role? Like if you think you're going to die out there, you're probably going to die. And they'd actually said goodbye to each other. They acknowledged to each other that we're probably not going to make it out of this, even though, interestingly enough, they're only about 100 yards from a road. But getting to that road from here to there seems impossible, too far. And what happened to get to the spot is they traveled for 3 to 4 days, they said. And Ian would take 2 steps, and he's like 6'4". He would fall into the brush gently, because he couldn't fall hard. And he would then stand up again. Carol would take 2 steps, and he would repeat. He had scratches head to toe, just from all the vegetation and what it did to them. So they're getting hoisted out, and huge news media story at the time. And this is Carol and Ian 6 months later. And we're going to go for a hike and try to find out what happened to them. They made a full recovery. And we're obviously very good friends. Based on what this is like at the peak of COVID. And so we go out and we surmise that they got lost here. And here's how this happened is they go out to watch the sunset, almost in their pajamas. And they have no intention to be out more than 30 minutes. But they hike a little bit further down to Johnston Trail, And then suddenly it gets dark. They don't have any headlamp or flashlight. And then Ian trips and he loses his glasses. He cannot see without his glasses. And so now Ian's on his hands and knees. Neither of them hear very well. Carol can see lights across the bay, and they make a decision that's a terrible decision, that if we can just get down to Tomales Bay, we're going to be okay. But they're not, because that is going to lead them into this horrible vegetation mess of stinging nettles and berry vines and poison oak, and you name it, it has it in that area. So that's just a little story about search and rescue and a little bit about the anatomy of the search. And the reason I think they survived is because they were very committed to each other, and they were really, going to hold on as long as they could. They could keep each other warm, and they drank water. And so those are some of the elements. And I have literally 100 case studies of all kinds of different things, but this one is always one of my favorite to share. And so with that, I'm going to have Jillian and Emmy come up and talk a little bit about just some considerations when out foraging. And I'll have you guys stand right where I'm standing.
Hi, you guys. I'm Jillian. I know the camera angle is terrible from here, so we're not going to mind that. I talk really, really fast when I'm excited, so don't be afraid to tell me to slow down. But one of the first things that we wanted to talk to you guys about when you're out and you're mushroom foraging is just, the weather and how best to prepare. So obviously one of the most important things when you're out in the wilderness is making sure that you're properly equipped. And that would be with clothing, making sure you're wearing the right layers. So that could be when it's cold, just wearing like a comfortable, synthetic kind of under layer. If you're working out, fleece, something that doesn't let water stick to your body, because you're going to cool down really fast if you have water on your body. That being said, cotton kills, cotton traps water. So just making sure that you're not wearing anything that's going to retain water and just cause your body to cool down more than it is. Another consideration is we recommend that you always bring a puffy coat when you're out in the field. One of the easiest things to do is if you're ever in a situation where you're trapped in an area for a long time, whether that be you're injured or like Mike was saying, in the last bit when they were just trapped in this incredible just area filled with brush and you can't move and, weather's dropping, it's really important that you're staying warm. And that's why, we recommend wearing layers, bringing a puffy coat, avoiding cotton. Another really good consideration is, just making sure that you're being educated on what the weather forecast is. Like, is it going to rain? Is it going to snow? Is it going to be windy? And that again is just ensuring that you're wearing the right layers, that you're properly equipped. And here's a question. So, show of hands, who here has anyone like spent an unexpected night or been trapped out longer than they would have liked after dark? Okay, one person. All right.
I know there's more of you.
That being the case, another helpful consideration is just like bringing an additional light. You never know what's going to happen out there. In this scenario, he didn't have his glasses. He couldn't see very well, and she could only see the light from the cars, which is why they made the decision to try and get down to Tomales Bay. And so maybe it would have helped their situation had they brought an additional light source, just so that way they could have stayed on trail and, examined the area better before they had gone off trail.
Okay, something else we need to be very cautious of is hypothermia. I know you guys are very experienced, probably much more than we are, but it's still very important to be aware of. It's extremely hard to notice in yourself, especially since the symptoms are very gradual over time. So it's hard to just see when you can easily see a sudden change, hypothermia is usually not that. If you get injured, it increases your odds of getting hypothermia significantly. So you have to be aware of that. And then it's very common to get hypothermia if you're hiking and you get very sweaty and you get wet from that, especially if you're wearing cotton because that absorbs water. And then if you're in the cold weather, then that water that's still on your body turns cold and you just get hypothermic from that. A great way to prevent this is with calories and water, making sure you're keeping yourself hydrated and fueled. And it's also very important to recognize what hypothermia looks like in your friends and your partners. So if they start acting differently, start talking weirdly, called altered level of consciousness, they start saying things that are uncommon for them, or they just are relatively disorganized in what they are doing, because that often can lead to not knowing where you are, which then leads to getting lost in wilderness. If you are out in the cold and you see yourself starting to get hypothermic, it's very important to get yourself out of that area and then rewarming. But it's also very important to remember that if you are cold enough that you're trying to rewarm, don't rewarm unless you know you're not going to get cold again, because that is 100% worse than just staying cold and getting somewhere and then getting warm. Late signs of hypothermia are shivering, and severe, if not irreversible, signs of hypothermia is when you stop shivering. So if that occurs, you need to get out of where you are immediately. On the flip side, heat stress, it's less common than hypothermia, but is becoming more prevalent. Some common symptoms of this are altered level of consciousness as well, going off your baseline. So, I mean, like in cases with dementia, your baseline might already be altered, but if you know your friends and your family, you know what their normal is. And if they're starting to get off their normal, that's an altered level. And then once you start to become altered or disorganized or confused, then that's when you go missing.
All right, so another topic that we wanted to talk about is navigation, which I'm sure is very important to you guys when you're out in the field. So just some helpful tips would be using mapping apps. That's something that's accessible to a lot of people now, especially in the new age of technology. And it's great because with these apps, you're probably always going to know where you are just with these GPS systems. So you can use a variety of apps, and that can be Gaia, that can be Caltopo, All Trails. But you can also go back to like paper and pencil, not super common nowadays. I don't know how many of you are comfortable with that, but it's something to consider. And I would definitely recommend if you're out and you're using a phone, anything can happen. You can get your phone wet, you can lose your phone, it can die. Just making sure that you're comfortable with a paper map and bringing that with you. So maybe go to an REA navigation class if you're not familiar with maps or you just like to get better at it. And then, we have all these accessible resources online, like I said before, technology, this new age. So you have things like YouTube, and you can use that to help educate yourself. So an important consideration is that anyone can get lost. Mushroom pickers are notoriously famous for getting lost, and that's because in some cases, you guys might be searching for mushrooms more than you are aware of your own surroundings. So that being said, just make sure that you're okay with like using a compass, making sure that you're having a backup plan. Another really important consideration is, I don't know how many of you have like the newest version of the iPhone, but we have something called like satellite texting, which I think is really cool because you can, text your loved ones, pinging off a satellite. You can also carry an inReach unit in case you're so far out that for whatever reason that isn't accessible. I know it isn't great if there's a lot of tree coverage. An inReach unit, and making sure that you're telling someone where you're going to be and when you're going to come back, like having a hard stop time and being like, if I'm not back by this time, it might be good to start getting the ball rolling, right? And that can also be just like, this is the route I plan to take, or this is the area that I plan to be in. And that can be really helpful if the situation does arise that you need to contact law enforcement, so that way we have a better understanding of the person's whereabouts. And I think that's it. Oh, yes. With mapping apps, a thing that we've noticed that's very common is they tend to drain battery apps like that. So, like I said before, it's best to just be prepared and maybe carry one, maybe two. I always like to carry three just because I tend to lose mine, but just like backup batteries. So that way, if something does happen, you can recharge your phone and really make sure that you know where you are at all times. So, thank you.
So that was a very general overview. And one thing I wanted to clarify, if you find yourself getting cold, do everything you can to stay warm. When I talk about rewarming, it's when you have a patient that's cold and you're not, you don't want to get somebody warm and then cold again. And so it's more of a deep medical consideration. But sometimes the best thing you can do if you've been sitting for a long time and find yourself hypothermic is start hiking, and that'll generate body heat. And I have actually treated a bunch of people by making them start hiking right up to the moment where they start to perspire, and then I put them in a sleeping bag and they're good. So with that, we're open to any questions you guys have.
I just recently found out that it's a Pixel 9, it's an Android, and it has satellite available to it as well. I tried it out somewhere where I had no cell phone coverage, and it's slow. There's a lot of lag,
Yep.
but it works.
Yep.
Which is a great advantage.
And the reality is satellite texting is going to put search and rescue teams out of business because, which is good, but no, it's going to be an important lifesaver. Now, it doesn't work if you have a lot of tree canopy. So finding open sky is going to be an important consideration for you foragers out there if you end up needing to use satellite texting. Yes.
Do the other large counties also have such great tools, or is it mainly Marin? I mean, and who pays for it?
So that's a good question. So I would say search and rescue teams are much more largely funded by donations than they are government. But we do get really, our vehicles they pay for all the maintenance. We actually end up buying most of our trucks, but the county takes them over and pays for them. They pay for a facility for us. And we get, 10 or 20,000 a year, and probably a little more in soft costs, but it costs about 100,000 a year to run the search and rescue team. And so most of that's donations, and that's pretty common across. So if you ever want to, pay it forward, consider a donation to your local search and rescue team. And, but we all also work closely together. Yes. Yeah, so we're in the fundamental belief of no charge for rescue because we don't want people to hesitate to make that phone call considering the bill that they may get. And that's I would say still much more the norm with a few notable exceptions across the United States. You will not get a bill for a search unless the only exceptions are in rare cases where people were like out of their mind on drugs and SAR volunteers got hurt. I've seen there was just one case in Orange County that did occur. Yes.
So you guys continue to search into the night. And I was wondering how much more dangerous for your own people is it to do that stuff at night and maybe getting lost yourselves?
So it's all about managing risk. And the reality is in the last 20 years, since 1996, so more than 20 years, 30 or so years, there's been 8 search and rescue volunteers killed in the line of duty in California. And we injure about 40 to 50 people annually as well across California. And now keep in mind, California is a very busy search and rescue state. We had a search in San Mateo County in May where we had over 70 members respond over the course of 8 days, and 70% got poison oak and several had to be hospitalized. So people are always exposing themselves to risk. Did you guys get poison oak? No? Okay. So, no, it's a hazard. So if we had good clues, we would go off trail into drainage depending on the capability. We also rate people. So you're type 2. So Jillian and Emmy are type 2 searchers, which is still really tough. But if we have something that's really gnarly, we have a whole different fitness level for type 1. And they also have rope access, and we would send the more highly qualified searchers to go into riskier areas. And that's a big job that I have as a manager, is managing risk and making sure that we're doing the right amount of risk for reward. Yes. Yes, we have both thermal imaging cameras. The drones have thermal imaging. We have this incredible airplane that's available to us. It's an RC-27. It actually maps fires, but it also does thermal imaging for missing person. And they've been able to see tracks in snow at like 10,000 feet. And they're like, we think your guy went this way. And the imaging is incredible. Doesn't work under trees though. Yes.
So when you're searching, are people oftentimes still moving? Is that?
Yeah, so we had a search. This goes back about 7-8 years ago in Jackson State Forest, where we had a fairly mobile, very lost mushroom picker on the south side of the highway. He ultimately ran into one of the search teams after coming out of a godforsaken drainage. But we had like followed his tracks into the drainage and then lost him. Yes, so people can still be mobile for days. Yep.
Curious, after the very intensive training, what is the for volunteers going on searches? What searches arise, sort of that expectation that they join,
So everybody's got a job or school, and but you want to have a lifestyle where you have a fair amount of availability. We train once a month, every month, and there's actually most of the time other trainings that are involved as well. We meet twice a month. We also train during those meetings. But we have an expectations from our membership that they go on 20% of all mutual aid missions and 30% of all in-county missions. And our tempo is about response. But we also have 100 people knowing that half of them aren't going to show up because they've got other commitments. So that's built into our plan. And sometimes you're not available now, but you'll be available in a few hours, or you'll be available tomorrow if the search continues. Yes.
It can definitely be pretty difficult. I'm taking 10 classes and then have a whole bunch of extracurriculars outside of school. So I actually had to switch school programs to school that's more lenient and allows me to leave from time to time, just so that way I could manage all of that, and continue to pursue like a college.
I think it depends on what you're doing. I played sports around all through high school, and I mean, obviously a full load of classes, but if you prioritize the right things and you keep on top of your schoolwork and you have your coaches understand, I mean, I never found it to be an issue, but there's always something that would take the deficit, and you had to skip a day of school for searches. You'd have to make up, or on the ride to a search, I ended up doing a lot of homework then.
So I have a question for you guys. What is one of the more meaningful searches that you responded on?
Do you want to go first?
How many searches have you been on?
A lot. I'm not sure. I haven't kept track.
Okay.
Probably more like, I think 55 at this point.
Mm-hmm.
I think the most memorable was a missing hiker in Tuolumne County, which is right near Yosemite, or it is Yosemite. It's right next to the valley. It was probably Operation Day 3 by the time we got there. And he had a fight with his family, and he went to go get some alone time or something. One of the Marin teams was the find team, and then my team was the rescue team. So we hightailed it over to the river where he was. It was pretty thick brush and about a 200-foot distance between the road and the hiker was probably, I don't know, 100 feet of elevation. So it was decently steep. And he was ambulatory and absolutely refused to let us put him in a litter. So we created a makeshift little rope system with we call it an alpine butterfly knot, which just lets us put like little hooks almost in the rope. And that way we could attach it to his belt and help him walk up the hill. And that way he got to his family in the ambulance that was waiting on him.
Mine is definitely a little different. I'd say the most impactful story is probably something you'd hear a lot from search and rescue members. And it was probably my first search 3 years ago. I was a freshman, just a little child coming into the team. And I was I don't want to say not confident in my skills, but definitely very timid and very anxious about being able to, hold myself to the standard that a lot of the members on the team had already, had and had kind of demonstrated through the various trainings that I had participated in. But through this search, I got to meet so many people. I got to communicate with members of the public. I got to discover my love of service, and I just got to grow more confident in my skills, just in basic things like navigation, but also like talking to adults, which I don't feel like a lot of people my age now do. But it's something that I've grown to be very good at. And just holding myself to the expectation that I can do this. I just have to put my mind to it.
Yes.
You have a search and rescue going on multiple days. You have to keep motivation up somehow. Almost as if your day one motivation. How do you guys do that? And I think you had on your slide, when do you guys go on place?
Yeah, so that's a really good question. And so a lot of it starts with the briefing in the morning and in the leadership of the search, that this is still important. These people have a very high probability of still surviving out there. And today is the day that we're going to get lucky and we're going to find them. And we need to think that way in order to be successful. And every day a search goes on, there's oftentimes greater and greater risk because we're now going into the more and more difficult areas to access, in the terrain. The trails are the easy day one. The drainages, can actually go on for days. And that's where there's a lot more exposure and access. The other thing is we always prioritize where are we going to find people alive first. And so we had a really difficult search. I have a great case study on it for a missing employee, really a monk out of Tassajara in Monterey County, really, really deep in there. And so we focused on where she could be found alive based on all the scenarios. And on day 5, we're going to focus on where she could be found dead. And we found her within 3 hours at the base of a waterfall. But if we're looking for somebody alive, they're not going to be alive at the base of a waterfall. So, there's a prioritization that occurs there. The other thing is you need to swap people out. There's a definite a mental anguish or like, I don't like to be at searches longer than 2 days, because it's all consuming. And so we actually send people for mutual aid missions really no more than 48 hours. And then we, send fresh crews up.
I think another part to that answer is we're just so immersed in this wonderful community of people. Like, it's not stressful. Like, there is that added stress that we're going out to find this person. We might not find them in the best condition, but really you're going out with friends. Like, I've made such wonderful lifelong friends that I can't imagine like not speaking to more than like once a week. And it's just a wonderful community, and they really help keep motivation high. Because you can be out on a search and it can be like the worst terrain, but you're there with people that you love and, talking and spending time with each other. And it's amazing.
There's a real strong camaraderie, not that stretches across search and rescue teams. We all work with each other quite a bit. Yeah. And then when do we suspend a search? So every county is different. And there are counties that suspend searches way too, they don't search long enough, in my opinion. And I really believe, like the Inverness case, 7 days alive. The Pfeiffer search up in Mendocino County, 17 days, still alive. Survivability in a lot of cases can be out there. And I think in foraging, a lot of you guys actually have probably better backwoods skills than we do, and you may know how to survive a lot longer. And you certainly know where to find food where most people wouldn't. So, yes, so it's consideration.
Like brings in food for our people, porta potties. I mean, how do you handle the logistics?
Yep. So we have our own porta potties on a trailer that we'll bring all the way to Mendocino or Del Norte County because nobody else has them. Sometimes they'll rent them, but searching, I'm on the fire side where we're very well funded to go fight fires, and they set up this crazy camp and all this stuff. And search and rescue, you're living out of your pack oftentimes. And yeah, they sometimes bring in food or sometimes we have to bring our own. Like we literally have a portable field kitchen with tents that we can heat and the whole 9 yards that we'll bring to other counties because they don't exist. Del Norte being one. Yes. Yes. So, and Jillian has a good story about interaction with wild people.
Oh, yes.
But but yes, so we see bears, mountain lions, are probably the biggest threats. It's always interesting walking around an elk herd out at Pierce Point, when they're in the rut. But we've never had any bad issues. Rattlesnakes, super common. But honestly, we've never had a SAR encounter. People are much more dangerous. In Nevada County, on a search that we were on, an old miner shot a search and rescue volunteer and fled, big, huge manhunt, and then Jillian had near miss. I'm not going to make you talk about it, but up in Mendocino County along the coast north of Fort Bragg on a search.
Like they're kind of long, maybe don't have enough strength.
So a couple things is if you're on a linear feature such as a road, a trail, or major drainage near water, stay there. Don't get more lost. And if you are out of cell phone battery, you really can't navigate. I also think rest can play a huge role. Like if it's nighttime and you're lost and confused, like just hunker down and wait till daylight. And sometimes a little rest and daylight can really help you just get reoriented and start hiking out the best location. The worst thing you can do is to start cross-country hiking at night because you're going to get hurt, you're going to get more lost, you're going to get more off trail. And also leave signs, like leave arrows or put your name in the dirt, but sometimes staying put is absolutely the best thing because I would say 5 out of 5 times people get more lost than less lost when they keep moving.
We had a lady in Mendocino about a year ago, and she had gotten lost from this retreat she was at, and we ended up day 3 again. We found a white bra on a very open spot of the trail, which was helpful because it was identified as her bra by her sons. But then we found her later that day. She'd come out onto the trail because she heard some cars nearby, and she was bragging about how she had walked so many steps for the last 3 days, except for she was in an area that if she had stayed put, we would have found her on day 1.
One example. Yeah. That's a good one. Any other questions? Yes.
Well, you've had some experiences where some of the things going on during the course of the search were suspicious. When do you bring the police in?
So it's interesting. A lot of the rural counties don't have a lot of investigative resources, and there's definitely been searches, but if there's stuff to be happening, like they handle that. It's not stuff we get involved in, as far as a law enforcement or criminal investigation. One of the exceptions is cell phone forensics. And so if you do have a cell phone, I actually am the team leader of the new Falcon cell phone forensics team for California. And we've got some super wicked smart people that will download hundreds of pages of spreadsheets from AT&T, which is the worst. AT&T, T-Mobile, and then Verizon's the worst records. And we can, if there's coverage, even bad coverage, we can oftentimes paint a picture of where you went, and even if you're offline and then re-registered your phone and then went offline. So that technology is something that has also been really helpful in recent searches, and it's a new thing, the way we're utilizing it.
So that's great. And I know you're doing radio stuff. Do you do ham radio stuff, or are you doing the kind of radio communications that are more with the fire and law?
So we're doing public safety communications, but I'm a ham radio operator, KI6B, or KE6CRD. And I think ham radios are a great alternate form of communication. If you know your repeater mountaintops in that area, the 100%. It's a great way to call for help. Highly advocate for that. And then, yeah, I think that's it on that. Yes. Anything else? Thanks, you guys. It's been a real honor to present to you.